Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down how you can strategically evaluate a company's entire collection of businesses, its portfolio, to really understand its true health and potential. So, let's kick things off with a big question. Is a company just the sum of its parts? You add up all the business units and that's it? Well, the short answer is a hard no. A corporation is way more like a complex ecosystem. It's the interaction between all those parts that really creates the value. Right, because it's the structure of that portfolio, how all those different pieces of the puzzle fit together. That's what really defines where a company is right now, and more importantly, where it can go in the future. Okay, so how do we actually get that big picture view? Well, it turns out there's a pretty clear four-step diagnostic path we can follow. So, yeah, let's dive right in. All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to do a health check on each individual business. Then we'll see if they're actually creating that magic synergy together. After that, we'll look at the company's core structure, its value chain. And finally, we'll pull it all together for the big picture diagnosis. All right, first things first. You can't possibly understand the whole forest if you don't look at the individual trees, right? So we've got to start by checking the health of each business unit, one by one, on its own merits. And to do this, we've got a really powerful tool at our disposal, the Portfolio Health Matrix. It lets us map out every single business based on two, and these are absolutely critical, factors. Okay, so the horizontal axis, that's industry attractiveness. A good way to think about this is like the playground the business is in. Is it a growing, exciting playground or a crowded, mature one? High attractiveness means tons of growth and profit potential, kind of like an industry that's just taking off. Low attractiveness, well, that's a more mature market. Think slower growth and a lot more competition. Then you've got the vertical axis. This measures the company's competitive abilities. So how good are they at playing in that playground? If they have high abilities, it means they've got a solid, winning business model. Low abilities? That suggests they either haven't figured out the right strategy yet, or maybe what used to work for them just doesn't anymore. And here's where it gets really cool. When you plot all your businesses on this matrix, you're not just looking at a chart. You're actually creating a map. And this map tells a story. It shows you the exact role each business is playing in the company's journey. And we can basically group them into three different time frames. You've got the future. These are your big bets in attractive industries where you're still building your muscle. Then there's the present. This is the sweet spot. You're strong in a hot industry. These are your growth engines. And finally, you have the past. These are strong businesses, but they're in mature industries. They might not be exciting, but they are often your reliable cash cows. Okay, so looking at this spread on our map, we can start to diagnose the whole portfolio. What if it's packed with a bunch of future businesses? Well, we call that an immature portfolio. It's kind of like a sports team that's all promising rookies and no veterans. You've got tons of potential, but you don't have that steady, reliable cash flow to actually fund all that growth. And on the flip side, you've got the aged portfolio. This company is practically swimming in cash from its mature businesses, but it's completely starved for new growth. It's gotten comfortable, maybe a little complacent, and that makes it dangerously vulnerable when a competitor comes along with some radical new idea. So what's the goal? A balanced portfolio, of course. This is the holy grail. It's really the only way to succeed in the long run. You have your mature businesses from the past generating cash, which then fuels the growth engines of the present, and that allows you to make those risky but absolutely essential bets on the future. It's a beautiful, sustainable cycle. Now, this map is a fantastic way to visualize things, right? But you can't walk into a boardroom with just a gut feeling. Any good diagnosis has to be grounded in cold, hard numbers. And to get those numbers, we use another matrix. Think of this one as an economic blood test for the company. We plot each business based on two simple things, its sales growth and its operating margin. This really cuts through all the noise and shows you the true financial health, what each part of the portfolio is really contributing. Okay, so we've taken the temperature of each individual business. But now, for the million-dollar question, do they actually play well together? This is where we start talking about horizontal diversification and that elusive concept of synergy. And yeah, the magic word here really is synergy. It's this simple but incredibly powerful idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, that somehow when these businesses work together, they create more value than they ever could on their own. It's that classic 1 + 1 = 3 idea. But here's the catch, and this is crucial. It's not automatic. There's always a trade-off. So any benefits you get, saving costs by sharing resources or boosting sales by cross-selling, all of that has to outweigh the extra complexity and the administrative headaches that come from managing a bigger, more diverse company. And check this out. This is fascinating. Real-world data from S&P 500 companies shows this very clearly. It turns out you can have too little diversification, being a one-trick pony, but you can also have too much diversification. Both extremes tend to hurt your returns. There's this clear synergy sweet spot right in the middle where companies really hit their stride and maximize their value. All right, so we've looked at the individual businesses and how they work together side by side. For our last diagnostic step, we need to look up and down the supply chain. We need to look vertically. We're asking a really fundamental question here. What does the company decide to do in-house, and what does it decide to buy from someone else?
Yeah, this whole idea is called vertical integration. And to make it super clear, let's just use a simple example, the value chain for paper. It's pretty straightforward, right? You grow trees, you process those trees into pulp, and then you manufacture the pulp into paper. A paper company has to decide how many of those steps do we want to own ourselves. And that brings up a really interesting question, doesn't it? I mean, a paper mill is this high-tech, complex industrial plant. Forestry? Well, that's basically a low-tech farming operation. They're totally different worlds that need completely different skills. So why on earth would one company want to do both? Well, it usually boils down to two big reasons. Okay, reason number one, to cut down on transaction costs. Think about it. If you've got $1 billion pulp mill, you absolutely cannot risk having your wood supply held hostage by a handful of local landowners. So you buy the forest. You guarantee yourself a stable, long-term supply. And the second reason? Sometimes the market you need just isn't there. Imagine you're building an aluminum plant that needs a ton of reliable power, but the local energy grid is a mess. What do? Well, you might just have to build your own power station. So you see, when you pull it all together, when you systematically run this diagnosis, you assess the health of each part, you evaluate the synergy between them, and you analyze the whole structure. What you get is a crystal clear picture of the business. And with that picture, leadership can finally stop just reacting to what's happening today and start confidently and strategically building the company's future.